Alright, let's fix some more of my viewers' channels. First up, we have the Stone Zone, which is something I never thought I'd see, but it's a channel focused seemingly entirely on the manga and anime series Dr. Stone, which I have quite a bit to say about, but it's an interesting but kind of scary idea. And the first thing I want to point out though is the channel banner, because I really like it. Because whilst it might look kind of temporary and lazy, it actually tells you a lot about the person behind the channel. It shows that they have a sense of humor and that they don't take themselves too seriously, which I think is what we're mostly looking for in the anime niche. Light entertainment about things that we just want to geek out about. So I actually really love the banner. I just think it's another great example of how creativity and uniqueness will always prevail over technical quality and finesse. So long as you have a unique idea, well, yeah, you're in business. Now with that said, we're in the stone business right now. And as much as I do champion small niche channels with a very clear focus, I really do think that in this day and age, it's almost impossible to start from zero with general content. With all of that said, I do think that Dr. Stone might be a bit too niche. For anyone who doesn't know, Dr. Stone is a series about a bunch of high school students waking up after a mysterious apocalyptic event and needing to rebuild society. It ran for 5 years and is now finished, which is where I see some big red flags. It's one thing to be covering an ongoing series because there will always be a new injection of interest in it, but with Dr. Stone, I guess new anime seasons aside, the interest from here is going to be on a slow decline. And trying to build a channel off that decline seems like a nigh on impossible task to me. And I know this because one of my channels is more or less just a Hunter x Hunter channel at this stage, and after 3 years with no chapters, it's becoming very difficult to sustain. And Dr. Stone, as much as I genuinely love it, does not have the solid following that Hunter x Hunter does. The good news is that because this channel is so young, the Stone Zone is fully capable of pivoting their content. To what that pivot is, I'm not sure, but I do think that continuing to tunnel deeply into Dr. Stone is maybe a bad idea. To the content itself, we have the typical time issue. A lot of the recent videos sit around the 3-minute mark, which is not a very ideal length. Again, it's too long to be a YouTube short, and it's too short to be a YouTube long, especially with a video like this. For example, the title, Analyzing the Dr. Stone Endings, because there is a huge disconnect between the title and the video time. Stay with me here, but the concept of analysis is like sex. Ideally, you want it lengthy and satisfying. And if it's only 3 minutes, then well, at least one party is going to come away from that experience less than satisfied. So I'm not convinced that you could properly analyze even one ending in 3 minutes, let alone all of them. And just to emphasize this, YouTube is a long-form content platform. It is not TikTok. As much as it may want to be, it's not. What it does best is anywhere from 8 to 20-minute experiences. If content is shorter than that, then it needs to be really punchy, like quick-form skit comedy, stuff like that. So I would say the unfortunate diagnosis of the Stone Zone is that, well, the core mission of the channel is directly tied to a series that is only going to become more and more obscure as time passes. So it's time to pivot into something else. But there's a lot of potential with the creator themselves. And I didn't even touch on this, but the thumbnails are not bad. They are not bad at all. They're quite poppy, and for a startup channel, I would actually say they're pretty damn superb. So I would apply all of your wonderful personality and skill to a core topic actually capable of growing your channel. Now, our second channel here is Jolene Reads. Maybe Jolene, I apologize. I'm bad with pronouncing names. But it's a channel I've chosen to examine because it has nothing to do with my niche whatsoever, which is important because if you only look at your niche, then it just becomes like a stagnant feedback loop. And I find that I often learn the most from the outside. This niche happens to be booktubing. And although that is an area I'm becoming increasingly familiar with because I have previously analyzed the very successful techniques behind Murphy Napier, and I dare say that's probably how Jolene stumbled on my channel actually. But this channel already has over 1,000 subscribers, which is amazing. I really can't emphasize enough just how hard that is to do. And I actually think that going from 0 to 1,000 is a lot harder than going from 1,000 to 100,000. But you know, let's see if we can make that happen. This is going to sound slightly harsh, but what I immediately notice about the channel is that it looks like almost every other booktubing channel I've ever seen. In terms of visuals, the vast majority of booktubing channels I've seen use this same kind of thumbnail formula, which is the reader holding a book against a bright background, usually with a white bookshelf or something, sort of like giving the whole look at my book haul vibe kind of vibes. What? So immediately I would think that if you really wanted to stand out in the booktubing world, then what you should do is anything but that. Because we want you to feel unique. We don't just want to be another booktuber lost in a sea of very similar aesthetics. With that said, there are two things I do like about these thumbnails. One is the text. It has this lovely neon effect, and for the most part, it is almost always legible. This channel uses a very solid block font, as well as a more fanciful one from time to time, but it's still fairly legible. I mean, except this. This isn't legible at all. But the other thing thing I like is the faux border. This thin white line that creates a second rectangle within the thumbnail, because it creates a bit of fake depth with the illusion of an outer border that draws the eye closer to where it needs to be. Although speaking of depth, let's do some thumbnail doctoring, because they're not bad, but they could be better. And this is going to be a bit messy because I obviously don't have the original assets of the thumbnail, but in general, I do think that the thumbnails are too dark, so let's brighten everything up. Let's also turn that faux border into a real border with a simple blur. And let's also change the framing to make Jolene and the books more prominent. It's hard to tell, but I've also slightly sharpened her face, and some color has been added in, which, it's not perfect, but I think it pops slightly better than the original would on the YouTube homepage. Again, though, I would honestly try to find a different thumbnail formula altogether, because this whole person holding books against a white background, it's a little bit too saturated. So to try and be helpful, let's brainstorm some terrible mock-up ideas. For example, perhaps a full body shot of someone reading with the book itself commanding the foreground, which shows the act of reading and focuses on the material itself rather than just holding up the book you bought. Or we could zoom in and go for a classic 3-point thumbnail to simplify the entire message. Basically going with the equation of this person plus this book plus this emotion equals click. And the idea with this was just to make the video proposition as simple and clear as possible, because people's eyes need to take in thumbnail information in less than a second. If thumbnails contain too much detail, then it can muddle the message, and before you know it, people's eyes have long since moved on to something simpler. Or maybe we go with like a universally recognizable action to do with books. Like maybe a thumbnail format where your book review is you actually pulling that book from your shelf. Because when it comes to books, the most exciting part for me is that moment where you take it from the shelf, because that is the moment of limitless potential. It promises the beginning of an experience. But the point is that there are probably about a billion different ways to make thumbnails about something so simple and as universal as books. But the booktubing niche, from admittedly what little I do know about it, tends to be stuck on this one tried and tested idea, the books. So the key takeaway I would give to Jolene is to stand apart with how you package your videos, because you already have an audience that enjoys watching you. So the content itself is clearly compelling, which is great. Again, that's really difficult to do. So what we want now is to make it more likely for someone to find you. Make your channel a bit more enticing so that someone clicks your video instead of every other book video that probably looks exactly like it. Next up, we have Sonic Star, or Sonic STA, whichever way you want to go with it, I guess. And I chose this particular channel because it's actually quite advanced. Sonic Star is sitting around 15,000 subscribers and has videos that perform at worst at around 2,000 views, which is a lot. That's like an entire musical's auditorium worth of people watching what you do. And depending on what your metric for success is on YouTube, this guy has very much already hit it. So what we're going to do is give him some more advanced feedback. Now, in case you haven't noticed already, this is basically a Sonic fan channel, which sounds like a very narrow niche, but it's definitely not, because some of these videos have pretty astounding view numbers. And I think that's because Sonic is just one of those characters that everybody knows. People may not necessarily like or love Sonic, but a massive portion of, I would honestly say the entire world, is at least aware of Sonic. So that potential audience is pretty big. And it doesn't surprise me that most of the more successful videos on this channel are the ones that are sold in a much more general way. For example, How Sonic Ruined Tails. That to me is a perfect title, because it essentially says, here is the thing you know, and here is a dark twist. It attaches emotion to your nostalgia. Another great example is Time Sonic Was Not So Family Friendly, which does the same thing. Here is the thing you know, and here is the dark twist. Except the specific emotion this time is more shock. But this formula can work with any emotion, as demonstrated by what is by far the most viewed video on this channel. Does Sonic love Amy? Now, full disclosure, I am not particularly deep into Sonic. I played some of the games when I was a child and I have no idea who Amy even is, which, rather counterintuitively, is exactly why this works so well. Because not knowing who she is creates a curiosity gap. It makes me want to find out because you've added an element of mystery to that formula. So it's now, here's that thing you know, here's an emotional twist, and here is the mystery element that ties them both together. So I'm not at all surprised that that video took off. It's almost evocative of like a game theory video title actually. But a lot of what this channel does is not that. Those videos I mentioned are what I would describe as Sonic theory or lore. But in more recent times, the channel has departed from that and has been experimenting with a whole bunch of other stuff, like this video, Sonic's levels in 06 ranked. And I'm sure you can probably tell immediately what's less than ideal here, but I'll say it anyway. There's no emotional engagement. Neither in the title nor the thumbnail, because Sonic himself has a very neutral face. The video topic is also incredibly specific and probably only appeals to those who have played the game, as opposed to the potential of the more general Sonic audience who are invested in the character. Similarly, there's also a best and worst humans of Sonic video, and to be honest, I wouldn't even know that this was a Sonic video if I didn't take the time to read the title, which is something that people don't always do. And I'm assuming that this human is probably a very recognizable movie character, but I guess I don't know because well, I haven't seen the films. And there's also this very curious real-life video where Sonic Star walks around in a Sonic onesie, which is a legitimately fun idea, but I think it's been a bit mismanaged. The title, for one, is way too long. I spent the day in a Sonic onesie hunting for Sonic cereal and McDonald's toys. That's a mouthful. But the biggest problem is that almost nobody will see that title. YouTube titles actually have a space limit where the platform just cuts off words after a while, so it's usually ideal to make everything fit within that limit. The title could have just been, I spent the day in a Sonic onesie, because you don't need to tell me why. In fact, it's more ideal if you don't tell me why, because that creates a curiosity gap. I hear that kind of vague statement and it makes me want to click the video to find out why. Why are you doing this? Why did you wear a Sonic onesie for an entire day? I must know, therefore I click. So even if you can fit that information in the title, don't give it away. But probably the biggest missed opportunity with this video is the thumbnail. First thing, the text in the background is next to useless. It took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out what it was trying to say, and I think the word is hunt, but I'm honestly still not 100% sure. Also, the H being blue is not a good idea because our friend in the foreground is wearing a bright blue outfit, so there's no contrast. The two elements just sort of blend together in a bit of a Sonic-style goop. But again, what does this video need? It needs emotion. And I actually really love the shot of Sonic Star in the onesie because he's wearing it loud and proud. But if I was doing this sort of thing, I'd probably add in a reaction from another person. Like maybe the image is Sonic Star walking down the street and in the background there's some sort of normie human staring at him weirdly. That combined with the title, I spent the day in a Sonic onesie, really works for me personally, because then the video is more sold as some sort of vicarious experience. Dude is doing something wacky and we get to experience the fallout from the comfort of our own homes. So I spent a lot of time on this channel, but the key takeaway is you have all of the information you need to grow this channel. You have a core audience of thousands and access to a potential general audience of hundreds of thousands. So look at what videos perform best and figure out their common trends. Similarly, and probably much more usefully, look at the videos that perform the worst, figure out their common trends, and stop doing those things. Stop it.